So we were gonna just kind of open it up for general storytelling. If people had objects that they wanted to share, and they had access to a camera that they could give close-ups to, or just pretty much open it up for any stories or objects or anything that folks were willing to share about early Northkeep history.
Well, I'm not sure. Has it been recorded? The little story that Torgrim told about the cornerstones when he handed them out.
They have not that. We do not have that story. No.
Okay.
Would you be willing to hold your cornerstone up to your camera just so that folks can see it?
I can untangle it from the mess I've got here. It's basically a piece of marble bound in wire. And what Torgrim did is one side is very, very highly polished. 4 sides are not finished polished, they're just cleaned up. And then one side is completely in the rough. And the statement he made when he gave it to you is he said, this is for your service, and it's kind of like service because some of it's pretty and clean and shiny. Some of it's really nasty and ugly. Most of the rest is something in between.
I like that. I've never heard that story.
And so that was the symbolism of the 6 sides of the cornerstone.
That's lovely. For those who don't know Torgrim and Sigyn, they had a business that involved stonework and stamping patterned concrete, and it was very grueling work. So they worked with their hands a lot. But I'm going to be getting a package of information and photos from Lady Bridget McKenna and Lord Katsutoshi.
Oh yeah, they'd have a lot on them.
They have some old photo albums that they were kind enough to take pictures of the photos in the albums, and those were some of the ones that were on display. But they've got a box going for me as they're clearing out their home, and they're putting things into the box to give to me to pass on to the Baronial archivist, and then some of it is for my personal records.
Give them our love.
I absolutely will. It would be my pleasure. Bridget is on Facebook. I know you guys aren't, but if you're comfortable with me providing your email address, I could at least pass that through that method.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
They're lovely people.
They are. It was quite a shock to see Katsutoshi show up at a populist meeting last winter. They are selling off a lot of their SCA stuff at long last, and they had a Viking pavilion that they were selling to the first person that wanted it. And unfortunately, my husband was caught up on a conference call and couldn't give me the okay to spend the money before somebody else snatched it right up really quick.
We've got Torgrim Sig's pavilion, you know.
I did not know that.
There were 3 tents, 3 Viking wedge tents that were all built at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. This is pre-Baronial. Katsutoshi and Torgrim and Bjortlik, they all kind of hung out together as a household a lot. Mm-hmm. They found a local seamstress who was willing to sew them for them. And so they went out and they found, I don't think it's Sunforger canvas, but
I don't know what kind of canvas.
But each of the tents, Katsutoshi's was smaller than the other 2. The other 2 are identical, except the colors and the stripes changed. And so all 3 of those, they're brother, family tents that were all made together. And so, yeah, one of them, Bjorlik and Elizabeth is still used. We have Torgrim and Sigyn's, and then who picked up Katsutoshi?
She said they were good.
Yeah, it was just sold. It was just sold this past fall at a populist meeting.
Katsutoshi showed up, and as soon as he said that, there were people all over themselves.
Yes, I was one of them. Alas, I did not get permission from the quartermaster fast enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going to be putting together some items for us, which I'm very eagerly and excited excitedly waiting for.
Here's an old story. That family, that household at, I want to say Castellan 1, we were at the camp we were at was a Shriners camp. And they set off by themselves because they wanted to be noisy and loud. And they partied late into the night. And the next morning, one of the Shriners who's living in a mobile home or a RV real close to their camp came out, and they were all apologetic about, oh, I'm sorry, we were so noisy and loud and drunk and everything else. We hope we didn't keep you up. And the guy just looked at him and said, son, you're talking to a Shriner.
I had never heard that story.
Yeah, that one goes way back.
So do you have any remembrances of the first couple Castellans that you would be willing to share?
Yeah, the whole Castellan concept was something that was kind of unique, and I won't go into that, but it was really fun in that it required you to enter an art, a science, a bardic, and a martial category. And whoever scored best three in three categories, average scores, would be the winner. And the thing that was fascinating about it, Daniel, and I keep mangling his name, Daniel's
Blackaxe?
Blackaxe, brought out a wood chest that was absolutely stunning. And everybody at the camp, the event only drew maybe 50 people. And everybody there goes, Daniel, we didn't know you did woodwork. And he goes, well, I've never had reason to bring it out before. Mm-hmm. And so that was the big thing about that first Castellan. There were a whole lot of things where people brought out stuff that, we didn't know you did this. And so once Castellan started doing that, these people started bringing more things out. And of course, mine is a story of woe because I taught Ulf how to make mead.
Uh-oh.
And so I entered one of my meads into the wine as an art, and he entered one of his, and of course the student beat the instructor. He got a better score. And then in archery, Selwyn had only picked up a bow like 2 or 3 times, and so I gave him some pointers and showed him some things, and he promptly outscored me. You're just a good teacher. It was one of those weeks, but it was a great blast. It was at a Shriners camp, and we tried to do out on Lake Keystone. And the very next year, we wanted to do Castellan out there as well, but it was like our last several springs have been. It was so much rain that it flooded it out.
That would have been Castellan 4?
Was that 4 or 2?
Well, I was just looking at the timeline this morning, and 4 is the one that was rained out.
Okay. Well, it may have been 4, but I remember we were trying to go back to the Shriners camp for that. We also did some hunts and just tried to make things that this isn't just another sword and shield grudge match tourney. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to be able, and the whole, one of the things that launched the Castellan concept was Talana and Mistress Catherine at an officers meeting saying, why can't a non-fighter ever be a champion at an event? It's like, well, they can be if you structure the event right. Mm-hmm. And so that's why Castellan is the way it is. You have to be more than a fighter to be the total champion.
Have you been Castellan?
I have not.
Oh, and by the way, Damon, I can commiserate. When Namron did their virtual event, I was kind of talking it up on social media and posted, there is a Artisans of the SCA Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And I posted my entry into the Spang decorating contest to the Artisans of the SCA, which is, mostly laurels and piers and, it's very highbrow work. And here I am posting a stuffed animal of a frog dressed in a Viking outfit. And I was talking about how this was one of the more amusing things going on at the event, and hey, everybody's invited. And one of the peers who saw the picture was like, so when are the entries due? And it was, oh, it's due tomorrow by 5. And she whipped something together that was, had a scribed, illustrated book, and they had a little woven basket, and they had a full hanger rock, and she won the competition. So,
There you go.
so I commiserate in that I structured my own demise in that competition. But yes, I made a little mini me as a frog.
There you go.
How long, you don't know that either.
What's that?
How long, before we started the event of Winter Kingdom, they used to have a 12th night. And I know they had done it at least 1 year before I joined the SCA. So I don't know how many years they had the 12th night. Do you have that in your records?
Northkeep doing a 12th night?
Yeah, they had a 12th night.
Northkeep did 12th night at the Camelot Hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, I had not heard that.
Yeah,
Yes.
they did it before that year because they told me about it, and that's how we met. As I was over at Gwen and Richard.
Hello, Peanut. Hello, Peanut. That's Peanut.
That's Peanut
Okay,
the Interloper.
Peanut.
Okay.
They
Yes.
moved over to Gwen and Richards to. I went over to Gwen and Richards to look at costuming, and that's where I met him. So.
Now, I don't know who you're talking about when you reference Gwen and Richard.
Oh, you don't know Gwen and
Riker
Richard?
and Gwynlyan?
I don't know either of those.
Or Mama Gwen?
Mama Gwen and Riker, their house used to be a social area. Have you heard of the Changeling? What is it, Changeling?
Changeling's Event.
Changeling's Event?
Another one of my instigations.
No, I have not.
It only happened.
I started in 2001 in
Yeah.
Northkeep.
I didn't know if somebody had already told you all these.
No.
And I don't want to bore everybody to tears.
Yeah,
I don't know how
somebody
many,
else can
I don't
tell
know
some
how many
stories
people
here.
are on here, so I don't want to.
Well,
Changelings was an event we can get together and tell you about it at one time that they had before Winter Kingdom or Castellan.
talk
Back in the late 80s, early 90s, basically through the winter months, there were no events anywhere near here, which was a problem that Barony Three Rivers had when I came out of Three Rivers, St. Louis. I moved down here in '87, and so people were just kind of grousing about, why don't we have an event? We got to do something to have some fun. And so one of the events that one of the cardinal troublemakers of Three Rivers had created was what was called a Changelings Event to break the boredom of winter. And so I proposed the same here. At Changelings, you show up as either the alternate of your persona,
Or a mythical creature.
a mythical creature, or a good-natured filk
Parody.
here you go, right word,
Okay.
of another person.
That's where that idea came. Okay, so there was a Castellan several years back in which there was a heroes or monsters.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was the Changelings is what it was. There were some people, I'm a Dane, and so I dressed up as a later period person. Smith showed up as a wood nymph and got all kinds of critique because she was wearing a nude body stocking.
No, you've got it all wrong.
Okay, well, you get that part right for me.
We did it 2 years in a row. 1 year he showed up as that guy from, I can't think of his name, but anyway, but the 1 year that he's talking about was next year, and that year I showed up as a fairy, and I did have a bodysuit on, and I had strategically placed leaves and greenery and wings and a long blonde wig that covered everything else. And the reason I wore that was because I wore it to shocked everybody. And some of the mothers were going, I don't know if she should be like that. There's children here.
Smith was one of the most conservative people you would ever meet.
Yes, at that time. I was very conservative. And so I did this to shock everybody because midway through it, I went in and changed to look like the lady we're talking about, Gwen.
The hostess.
I put on a different wig. I put on the glasses like she wore. I carried the cigarette she had, the mug she always carried. And I went out back there, and her daughter came up and started talking to me, thinking I was her. And she was in such shock when she realized who I was, that not who I was, but I wasn't. And she just got all upset about it. And we had a long time getting her calm down.
Unfreaked.
Because you're not my mother. Who are you? But the whole thing is this was a really fun thing. Talana was there. We've got a really incriminating picture of Talana
Wearing drinking horns.
and drinking horns up on her head.
Oh, that's marvelous.
Oh, it's just it was a big party. I mean, that was all it was.
Elizabeth, or not Elizabeth, Andrew
Castellan
and
Isabella.
Isabella.
Do you know them?
I've not met them.
Okay.
And I recognize the name, but I've never met them.
They're both really tall. She showed up as a dark elf, and it was.
Oh, she did such a wonderful job. But it was a fun thing, and that's what I'm saying. This was all posted by Gwen and Richard over at their house out in Broken Arrow. There's a big yard. It was a gigantic house, and it was back when we were small. This is, we're still a shire at the time. So and then the only main event we had as a shire was, I believe, 12th night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the 12th night event.
And we had that at the Camelot, and that's where we got married, at that event.
That was probably the last 12th night.
That was the last 12th night that Northkeep
So that would have been 87.
And they tore down the Camelot too, so we have no memories. Anyway.
So I'm wondering if you guys have any stories of Kendra Kenmare, because she passed away before I started here in Northkeep, and before a lot of people started, and we don't. All I know is that she was a flirt, that her nickname was Granny Wolf, and that she could hold her own with anybody when it came to wit and repartee. But that she was most commonly seen doing the jobs that nobody wanted to do.
Very definitely. Yeah. She was very sweet to people, but she also, like you say, she came across. She was very, like you say, flirtatious. And I remember one time some women, I don't remember who they were, and I wouldn't mention their names anyway, started talking about how she was such a trashy person. And I was just so irritated. And she never went beyond the point of that. She just liked it, and it hurt her feelings so badly. I felt so bad. She was just so kind. She would give you the last dime she had.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with that woman. That was her persona play, was to pretend to be kind of flirtatious and a barmaid. She had the little dress, that came down real low, but she wasn't in any way I never noticed her to be.
She wasn't loose or.
No, I can't think of the word for it.
A butterfly.
Yeah, she wasn't.
No, she was just a nice lady.
That was her persona.
She was a nice girl, nice woman.
She was a very nice lady, a very good.
Now she did date a number of people of various.
Yeah,
she dated Baldwin for a while, and some of the others.
How do you know that is Baldwin?
Baldwin Thorfinn.
Of course, yes. Baldwin. Yes, Baldwin is very, very dear to me.
Yeah.
And we remain friends to this day. And
Guest.
I do not know Guest, but I've seen a photo of him that was submitted that didn't make the presentation.
Okay.
Because I got it a little bit too late.
Is there anybody else on here that wants to consider it? We're talking all the time.
Well, Aldrich is from Wiesenfjord. I don't know if he has any Northkeep stories.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we've been here since the beginning, basically, almost. Not the very, very beginning. But, we knew Blackfox. I knew Blackfox before I ever joined the SCA because he was in the science fiction club I was in. Star Trek.
Yeah. I have a drawing that Blackfox did back when he was still alive and doing creature.
One of his characters.
One of his characters, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a picture.
Did you return that information?
No, it's actually, the funny thing is in the slideshow, I'm wearing the same exact
Guard tabard?
Guard tabard, yeah. And then maybe went to go get it.
So something that you may not know is we are not allowed per society regulation to have a page that is examples of Blackfox's work. But you have a wiki page and you have a Blackfox portrait, and we can put the portrait on your page and then link it using the category Blackfox art. So if you'd be willing to send me a scan or photograph of that, I can add it to your page, and that way we can kind of tie together examples of William Blackfox's art.
Sure.
Isn't he cute?
That is super cool.
I love that.
I wish I could find mine. You wouldn't want mine though. Blackfox didn't just do caricatures.
That was like my fourth or fifth event that happened, and the Barony at the time was in the habit of giving kind of newcomers the guard tabards.
Mhm.
Like, hey, welcome to the SEA. Here's your guard tabard. And I was allowed to keep the one that I had because it was given to me when Subadai was still Baron. And I was told that there's only 2 people that are allowed to tell me to turn it back in. And he's one of them.
Gotcha. Damon, or I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Aldrich.
You were talking about the Northkeep, what was it?
Castellan?
No, the thing before Winter Kingdom.
12th night.
12th night.
Yeah. So I remember that my dad used to live in Tulsa.
Okay.
And before he died or passed from cancer, I used to come up there quite a bit and spend the night with him, like Friday night, come to a Northkeep event.
Yeah.
And that was back when Winter Kingdoms were combined events between what's the Callantir and Ansteorra. We had Winter Kingdom events where 1 year would be in Kansas and the next year it would be down in
Yeah,
in the summers they had the Interkingdom event,
yeah,
and then I think they did 2 of them in the winter time,
yeah,
and that was what instigated
yeah,
the Winter Kingdom. The Interkingdom events between Ansteorra and Callantir there were like 7 or 8 of them.
yeah.
And then there just got to be some really bad politics.
A lot of bad politics.
And it was really bad politics. And part of what made it so sad was it was Ansteorra internal and Callantir internal. It wasn't Ansteorra versus Callantir politics.
Right.
It was Southern Ansteorra saying, you Northerners are way too friendly within Callans.
Yeah.
And the Callans had their own internal issues. And so
and that was also around the time when I think when the initial attempts we talked about doing the principality thing. I mean, this is like the 10th or 12th iteration of that attempt.
Mhm.
And we're actually getting surprisingly along together a lot better, and not allowing other people to tear us apart, which is, I think, a lot of what happened back in those days.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think the last Interkingdom was here in Tulsa, wasn't it? The last
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
it was up at the Girl Scouts. It's not a Girl Scout camp.
Campfire Girls.
Campfire Girls Camp north of Bartlesville.
But-
Yeah.
Cimarron?
No, the other one.
The other one. Okay, the other one. Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah, has a swimming pool, has an air-conditioned dining hall where we did dance.
One of the many ones that we wore out our welcome to and not allowed to return to anymore.
Probably.
They wouldn't allow alcohol, and that upset a lot of people. So.
Yeah, well, we're getting back to that now. I mean, a lot of event sites are like, no, we don't want it. And it's like, having just stepped down from Seneschal, I can understand that concept. I don't want a lot of drunken reprobates on my property.
That's one place where Roger is outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, we were going to try to use Rogers for Baronial, and then COVID decided to screw everything up.
Right.
I would really like to see us do more projects with supporting Will Rogers and building infrastructure there. And I mean, yes, the fort is nifty, but
the site is awesome. It's huge.
It's huge, and there's so many parts of it that desperately need some help. That they really need, like the chapel. There's no seating in the chapel anymore. It's completely just kind of fallen apart, and that's certainly a project that the Baronies of the North could come together to work on to support that event site that's been so kind to us for such a long time.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a departure from the purpose of this particular chat room, but no, I mean, I think 40th year really opened a lot of eyes.
Yeah.
People didn't realize just how much there was to that place, because 90% of the events held out there, all we ever used was the land right in front of the feast hall and the feast hall.
Mm-hmm.
And by having 40th year out there, folks were like, man,
We could have a war here.
you know, that was one of the things that yeah, we could have major wars. There's several times back in the 90s where we actually tried to stir up some inter kingdom
Honeybee war.
fun. Yeah, the Meadbee War. And
EV
things
Wars,
like that.
yeah, that was Wasteland's thing.
Yeah. And back when the time that we placed ourselves as candidates for the coronet, that Lily's, we went up and talked to the Barony of Lonely Tower, which is Lincoln, Nebraska. And they use the exact same tower we use. They use the same colors we use. And we started talking about having a war just for the fun of it between the two baronies for bragging rights, or, you know,
You stole our device.
You stole our device, or do something silly. And we started talking with folks, and it was like, oh, Will Rogers is the perfect place to make this happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Moonshadow did a really great job with working with Northkeep and getting that site cleaned up and ready for that event, because and I think that's something that, I mean, I know it's off topic, but I think that's something else that and we did a really bad job with Simrod. We had many opportunities to go in there and work and help clean it and keep it up and work with the rangers there, and we just really fell through a lot. And I think we need to not do that with Will Rogers. I think we need to do more of the refurbishing attempts like we did for 40th year, but not just for us, for other groups as well.
Yeah, we pretty well, Roger appreciates us because we have pretty well helped save his camp a couple of times with the financial issue.
Yeah.
Right now, the Boy Scouts are hurting really badly, so we could do something.
The Scouts were about ready to sell that ranch when Stillwater found it.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, the Scouts were going, we got this big piece of property and we can't afford it. And it was Stillwater, Moonshadow, who found that event site and first started using it. And the income from that actually allowed them, the Scouts, to retain the site. And then our continued use through the years, what Roger has done is he's used some of the monies raised from us to upgrade his kitchen and other things around his site. And then I remember there was a warming table that he had that it worked, but it wasn't great. And I watched him put it on a forklift and, oh, you gonna throw that out? And he goes, oh no, we just bought a new one thanks to you guys. This one's going to another camp. And so because of our income, they've actually been able to upgrade some other camps with hand-me-downs from Roger.
Yeah, well, my interactions with him were always very positive and very welcoming. So,
yeah,
I kind of hope we use them again, or I hope we get a chance to use them again.
Yeah, if we ever get to see people again.
I believe that during Northkeep's populace meeting last year, towards the end of the year, it might have been at the beginning of this year, there was a populace vote to purchase benches that will be used out at the site, and that Moonshadow is going to be purchasing and paying for some benches, and that we were doing that, and that Feast and Fury and Namron were also invited to help with this infrastructure improvement that would be a permanent part of the Will Rogers site.
Yeah, I don't recall receiving an invitation about that when I was Seneschal, so.
Okay.
And I just stepped down a couple months ago, so. They might want to revisit that when our next excellencies step up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when that happened exactly. I have the worst memory with regards to dates, which is really funny that I'm the historian, but I write everything down and have spreadsheets. But yeah, it was fairly recent. It was fairly recent.
So you see, Castellan 4 was the one that got drowned out.
Yep, according to the timeline that Master Diarmid put together.
Okay. That one, since the event itself got drowned out, we had revel / non-event to make up for the event out at Lake Keystone at Keystone State Park.
Yeah, that's where I got the title bar, didn't
But yeah, that's where you won the bar.
Finally, something
And
I did.
that turned into basically just a big party out at Keystone State Park. And everybody had a good time in it that year. That was the year that happened instead of Castle. Okay. Trying to dredge up old memories.
So we have to find events where I can drink because that's the only way I can perform. Well,
I am checking to see. I think we've got some messages in the event.
I'm getting close to court too.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be wrapping up in just 5 to 10 minutes.
Zayda, we can talk to you for hours and hours. So
And I am so all about that. And I've asked their excellencies to find out if we could maybe do a virtual heroes portion. Give folks a chance to talk about who their heroes are. And Damon, I'd like to apologize that I am not a better public speaker at Winter Kingdom Past. I just I get so nervous when I'm speaking publicly that I didn't articulate well the respect that I have for you.
You did fine, dear, and I was quite astonished. I appreciate it. I did not realize that I'd made an impact. So.
Well, absolutely. And your connection with Callantyr and being a bridge for so many years with that kingdom, I don't think that we would have the bond with Callantyr that we do if it was not for you.
When I started fighting,
yeah, believe it or not, she fought for a while.
I fought for a very short time. I wanted to become queen of Callantyr, or which I don't know. He wanted to be Ansteorra or queen.
The plan was to make me king of Callantyr and her queen, or me king of Ansteorra and her queen of Callantyr, and then
we'd have an empire.
So, Damon, can you speak at all to the founding of the Baronial Guard?
Yeah, somewhat.
You were captain of it for quite some time, were you not?
Yeah. Yes.
First captain.
I was first captain, and Barony of Three Rivers has a baronial guard that had been around for a long, long time, and we were essentially the captain of the baronial guard was a deputy seneschal, and Baroness Arwen, loved shtick and loved theater and loved to just play.
Mm-hmm.
And so she always had a guard in her presence. And the concept of the guard was, yes, we looked pretty at court, but we also provided a real service realm. It was a case of if you saw a guard in a tavern and you needed help, if he wasn't on duty, grab him. We just were by default we're here to help you. You know, we are your guards, not just the cornets. And so, yeah, I served as captain Baronial Guard up in Three Rivers, and when Torgrim and Sigyn were tapped as Baron and Baroness, they said, we'd like to see the same thing happen here. Now, one of the other big things that we did up there is that since they had events in St. Louis, you know, in the city, we also provided a very real security role where there was always somebody in the guard who would go out and patrol the parking lot every 15 minutes. And we always had a guard standing outside of
The meeting place.
well, yeah, where the crown or the coronet, if they had their own, you know, sanctum, then there was always a guard out at that door. And so they kind of liked that symbolism and the fact that it brings a realism to life for the coronet. And that was one of the things that Arwen also, both Arwen and Shepe, when they were Crown of Callantyr, they said, one thing you guards don't realize is having you at our shoulder, when we feel like silly, like we want to be silly and we want to kick back and be the goofballs that we really are, then we turn around and we see you there and realize, actually, we have a crown or a coronet on. You have expectations of us, and we have agreed to live up to it as long as we wear them. Mm-hmm. And so again, Torgrim and Sigyn liked that symbology.
Mhm.
And so that's where they had asked me to put together a guard. Now, because of the having events out at Rogers and where Barony has always had events, the security realm was never really became part of the role.
We did the night watch.
Although, yeah, the Baronial Guard always stood night watch. There was always a crew from 10 p.m. until 6 in the morning that we worked in 2 hours, and we worked in pairs as fire watch. And we would go from camp to camp to camp. And if anybody was too drunk to get back to their camp, we'd help them back to their camp. If everybody in the camp had gone to bed, but there's still a fire there, we put the fire out.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the realms of responsibility of the Baronial Guard. And so, again,
Well, thank you for helping to build that firm foundation, because even all these years later, we still have a guard, and I don't know that it's quite as structured as it used to be. It exists because of you. And that's part of what I was trying to speak to
Mhm.
at Winter Kingdom.
I tickled Torgrim one time. It was at Populous, and I was standing guard beside him. And this young lady just came up, young girl, she came up and just started to get ready to talk to him like normal without approaching the throne or anything. And I stood right in front of her. And I stood there with my halberd or whatever. And I stood there and I looked at her. Are you coming approaching the throne? And Torgrim looked around and said, okay, it's okay. And so I backed up. But she just went, oh! She just jumped back like, what did I do? But that was part of the game, the show. You're supposed you don't approach the Baron by the side without
we're there. We are there to watch our principals back. You don't come up behind them. You don't come up unnoticed. And that was one of the things that I was taught back in the Dark Ages. Was one of the principles, one of the founding morals of a guard is stand close enough that you are seen or noticed by the person you are serving. Stand far enough away that you're not part of the conversation. So if they want to have a private conversation, you're not getting into it, you're not hearing it, but you're close enough that they can go, hey, I need you to go and get somebody. All they have to do is look up and know that you're going to be there. That also means you all often heard things that really the public did not need to know, and anything heard in confidence or made in confidence. When you're a guard, your mouth shut.
Yeah. I got to have the absolute honor and privilege of serving as royal entourage, not guard, but in that role.
It's the same sort of role.
For the very first time under Vladislav Strelek and Margaret Nicanor. And I had never done anything like that before, and
Kind of cool, isn't it?
it was incredibly moving. It was an opportunity that I don't think I'll ever have the chance to do again, but it was wonderful. It was really wonderful to try and find small ways to ease their path, or to make sure that they were taken care of, or, had they had something to drink or eat, or, keep them keep them taken care of, and to accord them that demonstration of fealty, respect, and reverence.
Yes.
And that was a very nifty thing to experience in the SCA.
Yeah.
We've got about 3 minutes left before we're going to be wrapping up, so that folks can make it to court. Did you have any last minute stories or objects that you wanted to share, or anything that you'd like to?
Somebody else jump in. We've kind of...
Well, Aldrich stepped away, and Eleanor is painting right now. So, and I don't...
I thought
Eleanor?
I saw somebody working on a scroll.
Yeah. Eleanor, have you ever been to a Northkeep event?
No, unfortunately.
oh,
Well, it sure would be lovely if you could. You're down in, is it Bjornsburg?
No, Lubbock, Bonwick.
Pardon me. I knew it was with a B. I had that part right, at least. We do a collegium event every year. That's a lot of fun, and we would love to have you as a teacher sometime.
I've gotten to know more Northkeepers. I think y'all are a fantastic group.
Well,
So
thank you.
I'm going to try to make it out there.
That would be
Thank
lovely.
you.
And I love your garb. It's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
The woven trim that you have on there is just stunning.
I actually cheated big time with this trim. I purchased a 1 yard piece of a hand-woven fabric from Vietnam, from the Long Hill tribe, and then I cut it up in trims.
Oh, wow. It looks like it's hand woven. It's beautiful.
It does look woven, but it's not.
It's
Well, it's
beautiful.
lovely.
Under the edges so it wouldn't ravel.
Well, that's a very clever technique.
Zubaida, I can tell you one thing that one of the awards that most entertains me
Mm-hmm.
comes from being a Baronial Guard, and it's not the being fed by gummy worms and stuff like that. I have a little.
Okay, what about gummy worms?
Oh, the Baronial Guard used to get paid in gummy worms.
I had no idea.
I'll have to dig up a picture. It was pretty funny, but because in that role, like you were as part of Entourage and what the Guard did, you'd hear things. And so in private moments, sometimes you'd be sitting with the cornet or the crown, and you'd be talking about what was going on around you. And Her Excellency, now this is Arwen up in Three Rivers, made a comment about a person that we all knew, and I just flippantly threw a comment out as well, and she stopped and went over and pulled out a little silver saucer. And so I became a instant inductee to the Ancient and Noble Order of the Silver Saucer for cattiness above and beyond the call. I tried to resurrect that one down here and it didn't pick up.
No, they wouldn't go that one.
But sometimes you can be walking around with a little silver saucer around my neck. It's not omnivorous, but yeah.
Well, okay. Well, on that merry note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for participating. I was really worried we wouldn't have anybody show up, so I very much appreciated the company and appreciated the stories. And I will be taking notes and passing them along to the Baronial historian about what we learned today. And this will be posted on the historian's channel. We've been recording. Hopefully you guys saw that notification in the event announcement and are okay with that.
Top left corner.
Okay,
No, I should have had my veil.
that's okay. So again, thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting now.
Okay.